One of the great early Nazarene preachers and pastors was a man named Bud Robinson, or as he was affectionately known, Uncle Bud. And recently I read a great biography of his by Basil Miller called Bud Robinson, Miracle of Grace, which is free to download online. I'll share a link in the blog post of this devotion. Uncle Bud was very much loved and respected, and despite his lack of formal education, became one of the great preachers of his time in America. And he had a real way with words. And this week I'd like to share some wonderful quotes of his, which just lifted my spirit as I read them. They come from a book of his called Sunshine and Smiles. And here's the first one. He said, "The way to make a success of life when you meet with a disappointment is just drop the letter D and put H instead, and then see what it spells. His appointment." I loved that. I thought that was very profound. When you're facing a disappointment, drop the D and put an H in to remind yourself that even this moment is His appointment. God has appointed you to face even this challenge, and He will help you through it. The Bible is full of people facing disappointments. I suppose the greatest example of this is the disciples looking at the cross of Jesus, just crushed with disappointment at what they were seeing. But they came to realize that it was His appointment, that God's plan was unfolding in a mysterious way, even in their disappointment, and so they could trust Him. Perhaps you need to hear this today. Perhaps you're facing a disappointment right now, and you feel really upset that what you wanted or what you thought would happen has not come to pass. Perhaps you're struggling with why things have turned out the way they have. Can you take this advice from Uncle Bud today and see your disappointment as His appointment, God's appointment? In fact, there's this wonderful verse in Genesis that talks of this. Joseph has reconciled with the brothers who sold him as a slave, but when their father dies, the brothers think Joseph is now going to destroy them in revenge. But we read this in Genesis 50, verse 19 to 20. Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid." Joseph realized that what he thought was a disappointment, his being sold into slavery, turned out to be God's appointment for him to achieve wonderful things. Whatever disappointments you are facing, recognize them today as His appointments and walk on in faith that God will use it all for His good purposes in the end.
And just keep on believing.